Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Friday, May 31st, 2019. I am Dave Biddle, very happy to be joined by Jonah Booker as we bid farewell to May. Jay Book, the Zack Smith podcast is now 2 episodes deep. He dropped one earlier this week on Tuesday. It's called Menace to Society. I think a lot of people out there that, have just don't want to hear anything more about Zack Smith. They don't want to listen to this podcast. They don't want to hear us talk about it. I tell you what, I've been pleasantly surprised at how good the podcast is. And it's not just him taking shots at people, although there is some of that too, which makes it good. But it's not just that. He doesn't come across unhinged. He comes across pretty good. And there's some great stories. Just before we get into the Ed Warinner stuff, which is what I really want to talk to you about, just your general thoughts on this Zack Smith podcast, Menace to Society.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the podcast. I didn't know what to expect after the first episode, and I really enjoyed the first episode. I tuned in to the second episode, and it's really been surprisingly successful and good for Zack and his crew. I know that after the second episode, it was number 3 on iTunes podcast download for sports, so that's a tremendous success for him. Obviously, Zack can rub a lot of people the wrong way. He's not everyone's cup of tea. For me, I have no problem with Zack. I think that the stories that he's telling in this podcast is very entertaining and interesting. So I'm going to continue to tune into it. I know a lot of people just want to see Zack and everything he has to say go away. But if you go in there and you're able to, put your feelings aside and just listen to it, he does provide some interesting content when it comes to Ohio State football and a kind of peek behind the curtain that a lot of people don't necessarily see on a day-to-day basis.
And it comes across very honest. Here's one example. Of course, he's going to trash Tom Herman. He's going to call him out for all of the, acts of adultery, allegedly, from that Zack Smith's thrown out there. And he said there's been a lot of that. But then he'll turn around and say Tom Herman is a brilliant play caller, and we'll just talk him up as a quarterback's coach and a play caller. It's not like he's just, you would think he's going to say nothing but negative things about Tom Herman. And then there's Ed Warinner. After they lost Tom Herman after winning the national championship, and Zack tells a funny story on his podcast saying, as they're preparing for Alabama, Tom Herman's like, "Is Urban really going to elevate Ed to offensive coordinator?" And Zack's like, "Yeah, that's what I'm hearing." And he's like, "He can't." He's so dumb. He can't even call a play. He can't even articulate a play call. So they're making fun of Ed behind his back and everything. Well, anyway, no one was laughing in Buckeye Nation when Ed became, after we look back on it, when Ed became offensive coordinator. And Zack really lays it at Ed's feet the 2015 season. Now, there's a couple of things at play there. Zack admits in 2015 he was a mess personally. He even says that if he was ever going to get fired, it should have been after the 2015 season. That's Zack admitting that he, as the wide receivers coach, was a mess. And it was Urban Meyer who promoted Ed. He didn't have to do that. But, man, does it make Ed Warinner look bad. Again, he accuses him of adultery, but let's put that aside for a second. Zack Smith is he's just killing people on and off the field. But the stuff on the field makes Ed look like such an incompetent coach. We know he's a good offensive line coach, but what do you make? Just unpack some of that for me. What do you make all of the barbs through Ed Warinner's way, Jay Book?
Yeah, I would say I know Zack, pretty much characterized Ed as a inept coach, and I would say as far as his strength, which is coaching the offensive line, he did a heck of a job those early years on his staff. I mean, that when they first got hired, he was flipping guys from the defensive line, and he was getting them playing at a high level. I mean, after Jim Bowman left, the offensive line was an absolute train wreck. Now, when it comes to his recruiting, Ed left a lot to be desired. He never was a good recruiter, and Zack really went into details about that, how awful he was as a recruiter and how ill-prepared he was and how he has a tough time relating to kids. And we saw it firsthand on Bucknuts, and, our fans in the message board follow recruiting religiously, and Ed was always considered one of the weak links when it comes to recruiting. As a play caller, that has to go on Urban. I think that really cost Urban a national championship making that decision. And I thought it was fascinating that Zach said that before they were preparing for the Alabama game in the Sugar Bowl, Tom was laughing, saying, "Is Urban really going to replace me with Ed as a play caller?" And told Zach good luck with that one because pretty much it was well known within the ranks at Ohio State that this is something that Ed was not cut out to do. Now, the thing that you have in this situation is, I think Urban was trying to dip into that Kansas bucket when they made that run back at Kansas with Ed Warner and Tim Beck, who were joined at the hip calling that offense. And Kansas has never in their history of football seen that type of success when it comes to them running the Orange Bowl. And I thought just me thinking off top, I think Urban thought that they can potentially keep a high octane offense at Ohio State. And pretty much what you had was a situation where the offense was a complete mess when it comes to play calling. And we said it numerous times that 2015 team never played to their actual potential. Yes, they out athlete a lot of teams. You look at all the NFL talent, but they should have been just absolutely putting teams in the body bag, and they never did. And just seeing how all of the stories coming out from Cardale Jones and Zack Smith, a lot of people now confirming what Zach is saying about how bad Ed was as a play caller.
Yeah, and it does make Tim Beck look good. I'm glad you brought that up. It does exonerate Tim Beck, to use that word. And he was a guy that was trashed maybe even more than Ed Warinner was, during those 2 years. What's interesting is, in 2015, they didn't reach their potential offensively until the last two games. They go up to Michigan. Michigan was favored for most of the week, if I remember correctly. I think by kickoff, Ohio State was like a 1-point favorite, or it was a pick'em game. I think technically Ohio State was favored, but it was like by 1 point. Ohio State went up there and blew the doors off Michigan 42-13, and then blew the doors off Notre Dame. Of course, Notre Dame was overrated as usual, but that was just that was fool's gold. I think that if you believe what Zach says, he was ready to put Urban was going to pull the plug on Ed Warinner after the 2015 season, and then Michigan and Notre Dame happened, and you look back, you're glad Ohio State won those games. Maybe you wish that the offense didn't look so good. You maybe wish they would have won, on the strength of the defense in those games. Maybe they would have got rid of Warinner earlier. But I do want to move on. This is going to be a very joyous day in Buckeye Nation. It is D-Day for Julian Fleming, the number one wide receiver in the country. He will make his decision later today, at least announce his decision later today. And J-Book, I know you know this. I think Buckeye fans are going to be very happy later today, my friend.
Yeah, it should be a pretty good Friday for Ohio State fans. Anytime that you can potentially get a 5-star number one recruit at wide receiver in the backyard of Penn State, that's going to be a heck of a get there. Ryan Day is showing that he has the recruiting chops. A lot of people was worried about would there be a significant drop off after Urban retired, but you also have to give Brian Hartline a huge pat on the back, because he cultivated this relationship. He really developed it early on. And I think in the end, that's what's going to win out for the good guys, is the relationship that Brian Hartline was able to build there with Julian Fleming. And he's a big guy, 6'2", 200 plus wide receiver. He should be a guy that's going to be able to see the field early on. I'm not sure if he's an early enrollee. I haven't seen that yet. Hopefully they can get him in the fold. But if you look at the wide receiver talent that's on campus right now, and the guys that are coming in with potentially Fleming and Gee Scott and the kid out of Texas down there, you're looking at a tremendous playmaking room, wide receiver room there. But it should be a great day for the good guys here on Friday.
No doubt. And it's also, going to be a huge official visit weekend for Ohio State, with Kendall Milton beginning his official visit here in Columbus later today. It's going to run through Sunday. I love that these kids can take official visits now. It's because of the early signing period. It's another good thing about the early signing period is they can take their official visits in the spring and not just take, in the summer, not just take these unofficial visits, have to wait it out till the season to take their official visits. So Kendall Milton, 5-star running back, again, I know you know this, but again, expound on it. It sounds really good for Ohio State. Not like a done deal or anything, but it sounds good for Ohio State for Kendall Milton, J-Book.
Yeah, he's on campus this weekend, and once the Buckeyes lock up Julian Fleming, it just kind of puts a more pep in your step. It's like being at a casino and just winning, with a monster hand on blackjack. The rest of the night, you're feeling really good about yourself. You got a little swag and a little pep in your step. You're going to be having a whole campus full of recruits visiting you right now, and including Kendall Milton. So just having that whole vibe around the facility is going to be huge. And I know our own Bucknuts Bill Curley put a crystal ball in. A lot of chatter that Milton's going to be a Buckeye potentially down the line if things were to end right now. So Ohio State, if they can parlay the momentum that they have right now on this recruiting visit, it could pay huge dividends. If you look at Ohio State right now, it's a very attractive destination when it comes to high-end running backs, because you also have Robinson out of Arizona, Tucson, and then you have the number one recruit in the country out of Texas, running back, who put Ohio State in his top 5. But Kendall Milton, I think he's going to be a guy that will make a decision before the end of June. A lot of speculation out there is that he wants to get this process over with before his fall camp starts, and he wants to have a team already picked. So if that's true, you have to really like Ohio State's chances here. The depth chart is favorable. You're talking about a legitimate national title contender who's going to provide a way for these young guys to see the field right away. Obviously, you got some guys in Master Teague and Crawley, some guys there that are younger that's going to be in the mix. But for a 5-star running back, you have to really like Ohio State depth chart.
I'm sure Ryan Day and Tony Alford are going to be completely fine if Kendall Milton wants to make a decision in, let's say, early June. How about tomorrow or Sunday, June 1st or June 2nd? Just really get it out of the way early and commit to the Buckeyes. I'm sure they're going to be not pressuring him to do that, but they will want him to do that this weekend. And I don't think he will make a commitment this weekend, but when Bill Curley puts his crystal ball in for somebody, that is big news. So, yeah, it sounds really good for Ohio State and Kendall Milton. All right, it's been all kumbaya talking about recruiting so far on the show today, but man, they have got to get the ball rolling with defense. I know it's just May, but by tomorrow it's going to be just June. I'm still confident this is going to be a great class. It's going to be a great class offensively. I think we know that by this point. I still think it's going to be at least a good class defensively. So overall, this is going to be a great class. But man, it's not really early anymore. I mean, they've got to get this train rolling, Jay Book. They only have one defensive commitment. Legend Cavazos, who committed to Urban Meyer, of course, then decommitted, then recommitted to Ryan Day. Again, I think they're going to be okay, but they got to get this train rolling a little bit in June.
I agree. You're starting to see them really pick up put out some offers there. I know a local kid got offered from Ohio State recently. But the thing is Ohio State was so bad on the defensive side of the ball the last couple of years. A lot of kids are hesitant right now. They're going to have to really prove it on the field. Obviously, when you have that much turnover on the defensive side, it's all about building the relationships. On offense, everyone knows that Ryan Day offense is going to be humming along like a fine-tuned Ferrari. So you're going to see a lot of high-end prospects on the offensive side of the ball still gravitating towards the Buckeyes. On the defense with Greg Madison and Al Washington and all of those guys, they still have to build those relationships and be able to prove it. What you essentially have right now on defense is you're selling a vision. You're selling what you believe the defense is going to look like in the future. Whereas on the offensive side of the ball, there's tangible proof there to show to these kids, like, this is what we're going to do. This is how we plan to operate. And the proof is in the pudding. And you look at the results last year, it was one of the most electrifying offenses in the country. And the guy who was in charge of that is now the head coach. On the defensive side, the defense was so bad that it's been completely revamped. You can tell these kids, this is what we want to do. This is how we plan on doing it. But until you actually go out there and do it, you're selling a vision and a hope to these high-end recruits.
Very good point there. Very, very good point there. I mean, you can see the Ryan Day offense. It shattered Ohio State records, every record you can think of pretty much, as far as total yards, total touchdowns, total passing yards. I think maybe the only thing they didn't break was, overall rushing yards, but they still had a lot of rushing yards too. It was just, the most prolific offense in Ohio State history. And yeah, they had Dwayne Haskins at the controls. That didn't hurt, but still, even the previous year, Ohio State's offense was very prolific. We tend to remember the bad moments, but even in 2017, overall, That offense was very good. And Ryan Day had even more control over the offense in 2018, of course, and we saw what happened. That's a very salient point, my friend. All right, last thing. J-Book, I find this so fascinating. So we had a very, very, very good source tell us earlier in the week that Ohio State recently ran the 40. Not everybody on the team ran for various reasons. Some guys are a little banged up. Some guys couldn't for whatever reason. But the majority of the team ran, and there were 3 guys that ran in the 4.3s. 4.3 40s for somewhere in the 4.3s. We didn't get the exact time. Somewhere in the 4.3s for 3 guys. Chris Olave, no surprise there. We know he's a burner. Cam Brown, maybe some people are surprised about that, but Cam Brown was always a guy that was really fast, coming out of the recruiting circles. Kid that's going to be a sophomore corner for those who don't know. And the third one, I just love this. A guy that I was already high on. This surprises the heck out of me in a pleasant way. Master Teague. I thought he looked great in the spring. Now, could he run the 4.3s at the NFL Combine? No, I don't think he would. But, man, this is good news that he's one of the fastest guys on the team and recently was clocked in the 4.3s in the 40, J-Book.
Yeah, I'm really surprised about that because he's not a small guy. If you look at Master Teague, he's absolutely yoked up. He's a big guy. He's a pile mover. But I didn't really think that he had that top-end speed like that. But obviously he does. The strength and conditioning staff has done a great job helping him recover from that broken ankle that he had coming out of high school. And I think that, really hindered him just a little bit when it comes to how shifty he was and his top end speed. But obviously, if he's running like that, if that boy gets a full steam ahead, somebody better watch out, because if he lowers that shoulder pad and coming at you, 220 plus with that type of speed, he's going to ring somebody's bell. And if he gets in the open field this year, I think he can be very dangerous with that type of speed at running back. I know we've had some really great running backs at Ohio State, but if you're talking about a legit 4.3 speed running back at 220, I can't remember a guy who's that fast, that big. The main thing is can he make people miss? He has to be able to make people miss the line of scrimmage and show a little bit of shiftiness to where he can create holes on his own if they're not actually there. It's one thing to be a fast guy if you're just running up the offensive linemen, but it's another guy who has the patience and the vision to wait for the plays and the holes to develop. And once you do see that hole, you hit it like a bat out of hell. If Master T can do that, he has the potential to be an absolute game changer when it comes to the running back position for the Buckeyes.
Yeah, you think of guys that are big that could run in the 4.3s. I know Beanie Wells. I don't think he clocked in the 4.3s at the Combine, but I know he ran well. I know that when he was at Ohio State, there was talk that Beanie Wells was timed in the 4.3s, and he was like at 240 doing that. And then you got to think of Zeke. Would you put Zeke in that? Zeke was still about 220 his sophomore, junior year at Ohio State, and I think he was a legit 4.3 guy as well. Would you put Zeke in there?
Yeah, Zeke was in there. Obviously, Zeke wasn't a 4.3 guy at the NFL Combine, but there's not a lot of actual people who are 4.3 guy. He was a low 4.4 guy, which to me, with his size, that's freakish in nature. That's track speed, and obviously, everyone is well versed in Ezekiel Elliott's track career, being a hurdler and a sprinter, but. Yeah, it's a rare combination of size and speed and power. The thing that made Zeke special as well as Beanie is they had that vision. They were able to see the holes and the plays that develop. And once they saw that crevice, they hit it. They hit it hard. So that's something that I definitely want to see out of Master Teague. Does he have that patience? Does he have that vision? Does he understand the playbook? And the intangible things that really made those guys special is they would knock your block off when it comes to pass blocking. We really haven't seen what Master T can do in that realm, obviously, because he didn't see much playing time last year. But if he can do all of those things, then the sky's the limit for him.
That's a great point. Zeke still to this day is the best blocking running back I've ever seen. And he might be the best running back in Ohio State history, and that's saying a lot when you get guys like 2-time Heisman Trophy winner Archie Griffin and on and on and on, Eddie George, on and on and on, Keith Byers. I think Zeke might be the best. But great discussion here. Lengthy show here. Thank you very much to Jonah Booker. Really appreciate it, Jay Book, and thanks to our listeners out there for tuning into the show. I appreciate it. Hope everyone has a great day and a great weekend. Let's try the Buckeye swag, best damn band in the land.